But before we get started, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about the late, great Steve Mongo McMichael. Thankfully, finally, he's at peace. He's been in a battle for a long, long time. And a few years back, we actually brought together a whole host of legends to raise money for him and his family. Ric Flair was there, and Jeff Jarrett was there, and Eric Bischoff, and Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, even Mick Foley. We did it in Chicago, and we've put together a quick compilation from that event so you can hear some of the best and funniest Mongo stories. We're going to make sure there's a link in our description today. So when you finish today's episode, let's go celebrate Mongo a little bit with some hilarious stories from back in the day. But we're about 5 days removed, Tony, from his passing, and I'm sure you've had a chance to reflect on your time with him. You spent time with him, calling his matches, but also at his elbow on Nitro. Just a man's man, a hell of a guy. Can't wait to hear your favorite memories.
Well, he obviously was a phenomenal football player, and there are a lot of people out there that say, "Yeah, but a wrestler, he was yeah." But he was fine as a wrestler, and he was legitimately a badass. And not many wrestlers can say that they are legitimate badasses, and he was. So when you see Steve McMichael work a match, you're watching a man who could really probably kick your ass, having to learn how to work, and that wasn't always not easy. They brought him into the Horsemen. I loved these. I loved these promos. Because to me, he was serious and cold in his promos about what he said. And not only that, off away from the ring, he was really a good dude. And I really liked hanging out with him because, and I think I mentioned this online, because he made you feel safe being around him. Right? It's like we get into a fucking fight. It was kind of like it's kind of like Wahoo McDaniel was. It's kind of like if we get into a fucking fight, I'm getting behind this guy, Steve McMichael, because he was one of the toughest guys I've ever met. And you go back and take a look at what he meant to that Bears championship team in the mid '80s.
Yes.
Phenomenal, a phenomenal football player. And he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, of course, after he was sick, and they inducted him in there afterwards. But he should have been in the Pro Football Hall of Fame a long time before that. And just a good guy to be around. Always loved to hang around a crowd of guys, and was just a really good and very times scary dude. I mean, he would kind of look up at you with those eyes that had those dark circles under his eyes, and is like, oh shit, this guy means business. So I'm uh, I'm heartbroken about his loss. I'm really heartbroken that I do get it. There were a lot of pictures of him when he was sick. Okay. I don't want to remember Mongo that way.
Right.
There's a lot of pictures online of him in the hospital in his last days and how much weight he had lost and how frail he was. And once again, uh, I get it, I guess. I don't know. People going in there smiling, taking pictures with him. I just, I don't want to remember Mongo that way. I want to remember that big, robust guy with long hair that he put in a ponytail in the back and took no bullshit from anybody at all and was one of the baddest guys ever in the ring. He really was. He's like, well, I put him in the Goldberg was like that too. He was a legitimate badass. And Rick Steiner, legitimate badass. There's just a handful of them that you can say, if there was a real fight, he's the guy I want on my side. Mongo was top of that list. But he didn't come across as threatening or bad or mean or anything like that. He came across as a real solid guy to hang out with. So I kind of consider him like a big brother when we hung out.
He forced Casio to put on his Super Bowl ring at Starrcade in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And we all heard great stories about him. An attractive lady would walk by and he'd say, "Oh, I bet she's on scholarship."
Yep, exactly.
Just silly, fun stuff. But maybe one of my favorite tweets when people were doing their own little tributes to Mongo came from a big football fan. He's on Twitter at ZEE8552. He wrote, "I was at a Bears event as a kid and I yelled at Steve McMichael, 'Screw the Packers.' He came over to me, put his hand on my shoulder and said, 'Son, you shouldn't use that kind of language. It's fuck the Packers.'" I just thought, man, what a man. And as a reminder, you mentioned it. There's a lot of fans who in the last several years have thought it was in fashion to dunk on Mongo's wrestling skills.
Yep.
No doubt, plenty of fodder there, plenty of material to work with.
Yep.
I want to remind you, they trained him to do one celebrity match, and then after that said, hey, you're just a full-time wrestler now. And
Yep.
put him on the road making towns after he'd been trained to work one match.
Yep.
So I know that people are critical, but as a reminder, normally by the time you see a wrestler on Nitro back in that day, they may have been wrestling 5, 6, 7 years, not one match in front of the world on pay-per-view. And now just weekly live television. It's a big ask.
Yeah, you're not kidding, it is. And to be put in the ring as a horseman, right?
Yes.
That's a big ask. And that's a lot of pressure to be put on you. It really is. He was at a Starrcade that we did in Chicago.
Yep.
So I found out Mongo was there, and I said, I'm going to find that fucker. And I went downstairs, and he was down there, he was signing autographs. And I went up to him. I said, I don't know if you remember me. He said, don't ever tell me that. Don't ever say that to me. Of course I remember who you are. Jesus. And he kind of looked at me the way he does, looking down with his eyes up. He said, see those 3 girls over there? I went, yep. They're on scholarship.
I just want to let everybody know in his entire wrestling career, he had 159 matches.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of wrestlers back in your day in the WWF. They worked more than that in a single year.
Mm.
So I'm just saying and by the way, his first match, pay-per-view, his second match, Nitro, his third match, pay-per-view. Like he worked years and years and years before he ever had a house show.
Right.
Like, I don't even remember if he worked house shows. Now I'm thinking about it. It just feels like almost every event that he had, I guess he did work a few here and there, but Lord have mercy. What a talent, what a legend, and what a good dude. I think that's maybe the best way to talk about him. He was just a dude. And you know what? Better said, he was the man.
He was the man.
And I know if he was here with us, chopping it up, talking about old wrestling, he'd love our next sponsor, Blue Chew. SaveWithConrad.com.
Yeah, I'm Justin Gruffin from Knoxville, Tennessee. What got me to Save with Conrad was the 83 Weeks podcast. I really wasn't thinking about getting rid of any debt. I just wanted to cash out some equity in the house to do remodeling. But I did both, so that was pretty awesome. Worked out great. Redid the foyer, built pantry space, and there's little odds and ends when I first bought the house that I wanted to take care of, and we were able to take care of it. So, yeah, paid off 2 cars and some credit card debt. So probably all in all, getting $30,000 in that, and then I got some $30,000 more equity out of the house, and got still plenty of equity left over. So payment's good. I lowered my interest rate. I'm in a much better spot than I was. Super easy. Everybody was great. Very, very awesome people. Francis and Steve were great to work with. They were awesome. Made it through a very easy, seamless experience. I'd probably say all in all, probably $1,000 a month at least. I'm lowered my interest rate, especially the way the interest rates are right now, which is, that's amazing. I'm Justin Bruckman from Knoxville, Tennessee. I saved over $1,000 with SaveWithConrad.com, and I did a lot of renovations with that money as well.
MLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com.